the past 15 years, Marcy Cole, our next guest, developed an extensive private psychotherapy practice working with insight-oriented adults and couples interested in improving the quality of their lives. Her orientation is integrative, merging traditional and holistic modalities of treatment. She practices at the Wheel of Well-Being in Los Angeles and offers consultation by phone with clients around the country. We're also thrilled that she will be launching her Everyday Alchemy show on the Wynn this summer, offering viewers insight and practice at their own innate power to transform their lives and manifest what their hearts desire. Marcy spends the other part of her professional life as the founder and executive director of First Tuesday USA, a national women's organization dedicated to creating a sense of community amongst extraordinary women through social connectivity, professional networking, and social service. Tonight she'll be speaking to us about the joy of living in your higher ground living. Please welcome Dr. Marcy Cole.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's such a delight to be here. I want to thank Paula for inviting me. I just so love the vision of the Wynn and adore you, and you know that. And when I was thinking about you on the way up from Los Angeles, I thought, what you really feel like to me, besides a new dear and inspirational friend, is really a muse. A muse in really helping me discover my higher ground, or more of my higher ground, so I thank you for that. So the inspiration of choosing this topic of living in your higher ground really came from when Paula asked us. She said, pick a topic that really is in sync with the theme of the day, which is sharing your light. So of course, obviously, when you're sharing your light, you're in your higher ground. When you're in your higher ground, you're sharing your light. And I was working on the Dr. Marcy Cole website, and I was thinking of taglines, and it just came to me, the joy of higher ground living. I just loved it. Now, the jury's still out if I'm going to still use that tagline, but I really felt like I wanted to share it with you today because I'm having so much fun with the catchphrase every day. So what I'd like to do is first talk a little bit about what is higher ground living. Okay, and then we're going to go into some stories about how it shows up every day, in everyday life. I really want to share some stories with you that have really touched my heart. And then we're going to have a little exercise and then close with just some nuggets. I'm not going to share anything with you tonight, really, that you don't already know. These are just nuggets and reminders of how we can get into our higher ground, stay in our higher ground, and return there when we detour, which of course we do. I am not the expert on living in higher ground, even though it might appear I am. Right? No, I'm not. I am along the path with you and doing the best I can every day. And with the intention of being there, and when I stray, which I always do, asking myself, how can I get myself back? So I first want to just open up, before I share with you the kind of the things that come to my mind when I think of higher ground living. I want to get an idea of what comes to your mind. When I say, what does the joy of living in your higher ground mean? I just want you to shout out some stuff. We're just going to take a handful of what comes to mind. Fast. Pardon me?
Effortless.
Effortless. Being in your higher ground is effortless. When life feels effortless. What else?
Calm.
When you feel calm. Yes, peace of mind. Of course.
Contentment.
Contentment, peace of mind, contentment. Truly balanced. Yes, when we're in balance, when we're centered. Joyful, absolutely, joyful.
Fully self-expressed.
Totally self-expressed? Fully self-expressed. Yes, yes. Any more? Pardon me? Spontaneous. Yeah, not thinking too hard. Enthusiasm, which goes along with spontaneity for sure. Okay, it's all of those things, right? And it's different things to different people. And so I'll share with you what comes to mind when I think of living in our higher ground. This is not about holier than thou, right? It's not about better than the other person. This is an energy field. This is a vibrational frequency that when we're there, we feel good, we feel purposeful, we feel vitality, we feel like we're using our gifts in the world, right? We feel content, and all the adjectives that we just heard, right? And so I think of higher ground when I think of rising above the everyday living, the stresses of everyday living. Really rising above it when there's when there's conflict and complexities, and how can we have the perspective and the wisdom and the discipline to take the high road, as they say, right, and deal with obstacles that can really feel very scary and can feel like they can really get in our way. I also think of higher ground when I'm in a place where I'm giving, not from a place of obligation, but from a place of really free flow, no holds barred, no strings attached. I think of higher ground living when it's about getting in touch with our authentic self and really divine nature, our essence. I walked in today, Denise, and you said the word essence. And I want to actually reiterate that, because I didn't hear your whole talk, unfortunately. I literally came in on the word, and so, which was really, really kind of cool, because I wanted to talk to you all about that. Living in our divine nature is not about our personalities, and it's not about our ego, as I'm sure you covered, right? So I had an experience with this recently, where I'm writing a collective book with a group of women, thanks to the WINS conference in Los Angeles. And they asked us, what's your essence? And here I've been a mental health professional for years. I profess to try to be on this conscious path. And I looked at them, right, Deborah? We're in it together. It was like, I don't know. What's my essence? I'm like calling my mom, Mom, what's my essence? And what happened is I realized I'm drawing a blank on this, and I really want to look inside and see what this is about. Well, I was teaching a class, oftentimes we teach what we need to learn, right? And I'm teaching a class for a group of women on a monthly basis for a year. And I decided I'm bringing this into this class. And we were working with left and right brain, masculine and feminine energy, and so you know how the left brain controls the right side of the body, which is really about the masculine flow, the stuff that we have to do to make it happen, the to-do list and all of that, where the right brain controls the left side, which is really about our feminine energy, our creative flow, our divine inspiration. So I had us do an exercise, and I had us write down with our dominant hand, in my case it's my right hand, what is my essence? And we wrote down with our non-dominant hand the answer. And I participated, of course. And out on the paper came, and it looked like, I was, 3 years old, right? And beacon of light. Now, let me say that I love that phrase, but I really haven't used that phrase very often, and I certainly haven't used it about myself, right? So my first thought was, who do you think you are, beacon of light? What, really? And then my next thought was, the light's not always on. What are you talking about, right? I'm not always in my light. And I was sharing this, and one of the gals said, well, Marcy, you're a beacon of light in my life. And all of a sudden, again, I realized how we get in our own way. Our ego sometimes fluffs us up to protect us, and sometimes it knocks us down. And we minimize, and we really, really inhibit our divine nature of who we really are. And I went back home, and I researched beacon. And it talked about the lighthouse, the metaphor of the lighthouse, and how it's sturdy, and it sheds its light on others so that to help them shine and get in touch with who they really are. And I had this aha moment, like, oh my God, that's what I've been drawn to my entire life. And I started to embrace it. So higher ground is when we embrace who we really are. And we cannot share our light unless we actually acknowledge our light, right? So that's really important. I also feel really in higher ground personally when I feel connected to all living things. And for me, it's in nature. For me, it's walking on the beach in the middle of the forest and being connected to each other where there's no division between us. Did you all see Avatar? Yeah. Right. So remember when the major line is, I see you? Wasn't that beautiful? It's like, I see you past the veil and past the insecurities, and I see who you are. I recognize you. Beautiful, right? I also feel like when we're in our higher ground, it's when we're connected to source, whatever you want to call it, God, higher power, divine guidance, whatever it is. Esther Hicks, which many of you might be familiar with, talks about we don't have a shortage of time and money. We have a shortage of the connection to the divine. And most of us in our culture haven't been conditioned to really know how to connect and stay connected. And some of us who were born and raised in sort of organized religion, it may or may not have been a positive experience. So we get disconnected, right? So those are some of my ideas that I wanted to share with you tonight. There's so many. We could talk about this for days, right? I also want to share with you some stories about how it shows up and what I've been able to witness that just was so inspiring for me. How it shows up in terms of our relationship with ourselves. My story is about my 13-year-old niece. She's now 25. When she was 13, I called her. She lived in Boston, and I called her, and she was in a school play. And I called her and I said, honey, how was this play? And she said, it was great, I loved it, it was so much fun, and I was really pleased with my performance. And I was like, well, that's great, that's fantastic. Now, I don't know about you all, but when I was in junior high, you were blasted for something like that. I mean, it was like, it was back to the who do you think you are, you're, conceited and all of these things. And girls were really, in the peer group particularly, really conditioned to dim their light, not shine their light. So I got my sister on the phone and I said, wow, it is so impressive that she can celebrate herself in this way. And this is my sister's higher ground too as a mother. And this was such an amazing line. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sharing this with everyone and every parent I ever meet. She said, I've never told my children I'm proud of you. I always have said you must be so proud of yourself. Right? And it wasn't just about achievement. It could be tucking them into bed and saying, I'm just so glad you're here. You must be so proud of who you are. I see you. Right? So I loved that. A story about how it shows up in the home, in marriage. I have a very dear friend who got married to a lovely guy who came with an 8-year-old child, and this child had gone through some hardship early on. And my friend is a natural nurturer, lover, healer, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman. And she tried so hard with this kid, but he was really difficult. I mean, difficult. To the point where one day she lost her higher ground. She just did. Welcome to the human race. And she said to her husband, literally, she said, I hate your kid. Okay? I hate your kid. Now, you can imagine where that could have gone. And what he said back to her, he said, I know you have the best of intentions, but maybe you can put it in a different way. And in that moment, she burst into tears. And, he was in his higher ground. He gave her the benefit of the doubt. He knows who she really is. And in doing so, he helped her get to her higher ground. It was so beautiful. A story about how it shows up, and we are out in the world, right, being faced with lots of people, whether it's kids on a playground or us at work or parents at school or neighbors and such. This comes out of the mouth of a 6-year-old, my godson, about 8 or 9 years ago. I was visiting him, and they were playing with horses. We were playing with horses, and he got an allergy attack. So we rushed him in the car, and my friend, his mom, goes into to get him some medicine. Now, you must know that this little boy, he was all boy in some way, stereotypically, with the basketball and the baseball and the whatever. But his mother, I call him Kuan Yin. She's I call her my goddess of compassion. And she would read him angel cards when they would go to bed every night. And they'd pick an angel card and talk about the meaning of the angel card. Literally, he is looking out the window. His name is Max, and he looks like an angel anyway on the outside. And he says, you know what? And I said, what? And he said, what we say, we create. And I said, really? What do you mean? I couldn't wait to hear. First grade. He said, well, if I tell my body to be all scared and upset, I'm gonna feel bad. But if I just say, just breathe. It's okay. It's going to be okay. I feel better. I said, wow, Max, yes, that's absolutely right. And he says, like on the playground, Matthew was being mean to Jessica, and Jessica was crying. And I went up to Jessica and I said, Jessica, I used to be upset when Matthew was mean to me, but now I realize he's just troubled. I'm quoting him, okay? I'm quoting him. I've told this story 25 times. And he wasn't done yet. I looked at him and I said, oh, honey, if you get that now, your life's going to be so much easier. And he looked at me and he said, I don't have to play with him, but I can still have compassion for him. Okay, out of the mouth of a first grader, 6 years old. Right? A quick story in business, higher ground on business. Just a few weeks ago, my friend put in a bid for a house, and it was accepted. 48 hours later, the seller got $1 million more offer on this house. There's a lot of tricks that they could have done, I'm sure, right, Anne-Marie, to be able to have gotten around it. And the seller said to my friend, the house is yours. I gave you my word. That's high ground to business, right? In terms of community, I'm currently involved right now, hot off the press, in a, obviously philanthropy. Obviously, when we give of ourselves, that's huge. My women's group, we have a nonprofit arm called First Tuesday Circle of Giving, and once a year we choose a family. We sponsor a family in need, and we just came across a family. Her name, this woman's name is Wanda Burton. She is 72 years old. She had 3 biological kids in her early 20s. In her early 50s, she started to see the foster care system and how the children were treated. And she started to become friends with a social worker, who then asked her if she would be an emergency home where babies would come in the middle of the night. Now, mind you, this woman, didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't like she had a lot of resources. She said, of course. Since that time, she raised her cousin's 2 girls from the time that they were born. She adopted 5 babies, not foster care, adopted them from drug babies, babies that were actually exposed to drugs in utero. One was told that they were not going to walk or talk. Okay, it goes on and on and on. So we went to interview this family. And I'm telling, and also, this woman has heart issues. She's lost a leg 2 years ago, yada, yada, yada. We walk into this house with 11 people in the home with 1 bathroom. I cannot tell you the love in this house. I cannot tell you the light in these children's faces. And clearly, for us, it was like, of course, we're sponsoring them this year. So again, you see examples of this all over the place. Wanda Burton is on higher ground in a big way. And someone said, foster care, well, what did she get for that? All of a sudden, the skepticism, and it came so from her heart. So she's an inspiration example for that for me right now, and for my entire community. So what I want to do right now is I want to break for just a couple of minutes. I have my phone. This is going to be timed, so we're going to stay in motion here. I'm going to ask you to stand up and find someone in the room that you have not met tonight, okay? And I want you to just check in with yourself and share either an incident in your life where you felt like you got to your higher ground, that feels like your higher ground to you, or an opportunity that's happening right now that you might take a moment to reflect upon how you can handle this in a way that at the end of the day, you can feel really good about that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, higher ground isn't perfection, right? Higher ground is doing the best we can. And, you got a huge wake-up call. Most of us get mini wake-up calls all the time. And I really feel like, the 4-letter word that begins with an S that we won't have on video happens, right? And so when it happens, our first human experience is to say that word, and then to say, we have a choice, to wallow in it, or to say, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I use this as an opportunity for growth or getting to somewhere else? I have a client recently who came to me, a 50-year-old guy, really lovely guy, very mild-mannered, and had so much love inside, and yet he had a lot of anger, and it would come out in the car. He road raged, big time, scary stuff, okay? And it was so hard to imagine when you met him, because you would never imagine. But he would get so irate if someone was tailgating him or whatever. And so he would really go off in the car. And guess what? He did his personal work. He was really working it. He was really trying to go inside and find out what that was about. And then a few weeks ago, he was on the highway. A truck was literally coming off their lane right toward him. And in the moment, he was faced with, do I want to live or die? And the answer was, I want to live, because the guy had spent half his life wanting to die. Okay? And the other thing that came to him is like, kind of like, okay, I'm calm about this. Okay, should I go to the right or should I stay? And his instincts was to stay. The truck went past him, hit the car on his right. My client got out of his car, went to the truck. The truck driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. And the 41-year-old man to his right was killed instantly. Now, have you ever seen the movie Sliding Doors? Who knows what this was all about? But I want to tell you all that this guy, when he was talking to me, my client, after that experience, I'm listening to him and he sounded like a sage. Like he was channeling like a sage. And he said, who was I to be so indulgent and so ignorant to like be whining about this, that, or the other? He said, in that moment I realized I do want to live and how blessed I am. And that I'm here to use my gifts. Guess what? He is turning into a spiritual master before my very eyes. It's extraordinary. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, we all have stories like that in our lives. To one extent, yours is unbelievable. Thank you for sharing. So little nuggets, my PowerPoint or my notes, little nuggets of reminders, okay, of how we get into our higher ground, stay in our higher ground, and return to our higher ground when we detour. So again, when it comes to our higher ground within ourselves, our relationship with ourselves, it goes back to, again, be who we are. When we're not who we are, when we're trying to be who our parents want us to be, or our partner wants us to be, or our friends, our neighbor, or boss, or colleagues, or whatever, right? The power forces, the life force is gone. That's when we don't know what our passion is, we feel fatigued, there's depression that comes up, right? We know when we're not who we are. And the truth truly sets us free. So when we realize, I don't feel centered, sometimes it's because we're not being honest with ourselves or with others. The most extraordinary I think of all time passage written was, I'm sure you all know this, but I printed it out to read it again because as far as I'm concerned, we can't be reminded enough. It was written by Marianne Williamson, okay? And I'm going to read it to you today because, again, it has everything to do with the spirit of today. And again, for those of you who have never heard it, this will be a treat. And for those of you who have, it'll be a reminder. So she states, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us all. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we liberate ourselves from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So how true, right? To get to our higher ground with ourselves, it's about, obviously, I love Gloria Steinem's remark of do unto yourself as you would do unto others. Just reverse it a bit. And particularly as women, we forget to do this a lot. How many in this room are like givers, have a hard time receiving at times? I know I have. Okay. Again, it's how we treat ourselves. Acknowledge, respect, celebration. And when we lose our way, which we do, when we mess up, which we do, instead of berating ourselves or instead of pushing it down because of shame or guilt, how about just with our head held high saying, I'm so sorry. You know what? I was out of line, or I wasn't my best today, and that's okay. What can I learn from this? In order to get to higher ground, we have to have vision, right? We have to have vision. And it's really about how do we stay centered in the face of negative energy. We all face this every single day. And I think we can go back to little Max, 6-year-old Max. When the next time this happens, when someone flips you off in the car, or someone is having a bad day at work, or whatever, your spouse is in a mood, it's you send them love and light, and you walk away. Simple as that, right? But it's not simple when we think we have to fix it, or when we actually absorb it. And then we're lost again until we find our way back. Grounded. How do we stay grounded? Usually when we're not grounded, usually when there's any level of distress, if you think about it, it's because we're belaboring the past or we're worrying about the future, right? So getting back to present. When we don't feel grounded, it's can we press pause, rewind, and press play. And there's a reason why the Power of Now has been on the best sellers list for 5, 6 years. It's powerful and it works. When our emotions get the best of us, I don't know if any of you have read David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, where he has the calibration of consciousness, and Esther Hicks calls it her emotional guidance scale. And the idea is, it sort of goes from enlightenment down to shame. And the concept is that there's different calibrations of energy and vibration. And when we're on the top sort of part of this scale, we feel vital, we know who we are, we're in our flow, we feel joy, we feel all the adjectives we talked about in the beginning. And when we're at the bottom, fear, doubt, worry, judgment, we feel fatigued, we feel depressed, so on and so forth. And Esther Hicks has a great concept. She calls it the pivot point. And the idea is, it's reaching for a better feeling thought. So if you're in judgment of yourself or someone else, instead of expecting yourself to go from there to joy, right? How about saying to yourself, okay, this doesn't feel good. How can I get to just a better feeling thought? How about neutrality, where I just let it go for a moment? And then how about if I go from neutrality to acceptance? It is what it is. That's a huge exhale. I don't know about you, but when I say, okay, it is what it is, and so it is, right? And how about if we go from acceptance to appreciation, to actually saying, well, what did I learn from this? And then from appreciation to joy. But better feeling thought. Let's that's how we can get to a little higher ground step by step. The tools to get to all of this, right? How do we stay connected to ourselves and do and treat ourselves well and get to higher ground and stay in that way? It goes back to what we've heard over and over and over, which is still rare in our culture. We're still trying to learn it. It's really the power of ritual and prayer and meditation. Who was telling me today? Oh, yeah. You were talking about the power of meditation for you. This is something that's been challenging for me personally. I go in and out of this, and let me tell you, I know when I'm in and I know when I'm out. But it is absolutely proven over and over again. If you look to your own experience, you talk to so many people, that when we're in prayer or ritual or meditation, it quiets our mind. It sets our intention. It raises our vibration. It heals our heart. And it really feeds and fuels and frees our spirit, truly. How do we get into higher ground, get back to higher ground, stay in higher ground in relationship? I really do believe that the most powerful currency is connection, connectivity. Studies show that it breeds generativity, quality of life improves. It's what really makes people fall in love with each other. It's what promotes and launches businesses to be successful. It's what creates peace on this planet and between nations. And so what I think is really, really helpful for all of us to reach for a higher ground when we're in relationship with anyone is the power of pause. Pausing before, I just caught myself last week, before I sent an email, I looked at it and I said, okay, is this self-serving or is this really in the highest good for myself and everyone involved here? And I deleted the email. Okay? But we can all do this. It's pausing before you pick up the phone. It's pausing before you respond to someone who's not grounded themselves, right? Very powerful. In marriage, or any relationship, it doesn't have to be marriage, the small graces, the little considerations we show ourselves each other every day can make such a difference. I was at a wedding recently, and the guy who was officiating, I love this line, he said, we're always one sentence away from peace. One sentence can change the entire energy in a room, the entire dynamic between two people. I had a thing with a couple in my office where they were fighting about all the small stuff. I mean, they were just getting so lost in all of this. And I said, okay, how about if next time you say to yourself, I choose you. I choose us. Where you literally pause and you say, okay, do I want to go into the abyss of all this stuff? Or do I want to have a really nice day with the person that I love? And it was, I choose us. And just that line, I choose us, over time was really powerful for them. I do with my own husband a conflict resolution techniques that I want to share with you. When we get into difficult ground, instead of coming back and saying, okay, what's your story? No, you're right. No, I'm wrong. No, I'm right. No, you're wrong. All we do is share our story. All we do is sit back and say, okay, what was it like for you yesterday at 3 o'clock when this happened? What was your experience? And he listens. And I say, what was your experience? And I listen. And there's no debate. It's just really hearing each other, really listening. And guess what happens every single time? All of a sudden, the soft eyes come. The soft eyes where you hear this person that you love, and it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize that you heard it that way. I didn't mean it that way. And it's easy, to get back into flow and love together is easy. Friendships. How do we stay in higher ground with friendships? Well, obviously, it's to be discretionary with our friends, obviously. There are people that fuel us, and there are people that don't. They don't mean any harm. It's not about better or worse. It's about, again, vibration. Everyone in my life is at the same vibration or higher than me. And that's not because there's a lot of things I don't know how to do, but this one I've gotten down. I really have, and I'm sharing that with you. So it is being picky and choosy about the people you invite into your life. I love the expression, friends are quiet angels who remind us of our wings when we have forgotten how to fly. They've got your back. They know who you are. And they're unwavering in their support. Community. How do we stay in high ground in community? Obviously, in being in community. It's being at events like this. It's coming back to events like this. It's joining the WIN. It's, my group is called First Tuesday. There's so many women's groups all over the nation. And I say join all of them that speak to you. Join all of them. Of course, lastly, I would say, again, and I can't stress this enough, obviously, giving and service. When we want to get in our higher ground and stay there and have that experience, it's when we get out of the bubble of our stuff, it's so powerful. And at First Tuesday, one of the programs we have is Book Club for the Soul, and we just read last month 29 Gifts, where Carrie Walker, who was diagnosed with MS, was in the hospital. Her spiritual teacher, Mbali from South Africa, gave her an assignment. And she said, I want you to give 29 gifts in 29 days. And this woman was in her hospital bed going, what? Yeah. And she said, it can be as simple as a phone call, a letter. It's not, it doesn't have to be so big, but it needs to be a gift from your heart to someone else. And she did. And guess what? It did not cure her of MS, but it got her out of the bubble of her own stuff. And it got her out of the crisis, actually. It got her out of the hospital. And she wrote a book about it, and now it's a movement. Also, for women, feminine leadership, ladies. The planet, we all know that the consciousness on the planet is growing, but it also is in harm's way. And we as women are such exquisite beings, men too, of course, I love men too. But, really, women, we have the wisdom and the nurturing quality and the intuition to literally create peace on the planet. But in order for us to do that, we need to be available for that. And of course, that's our collective higher ground. So in the interest of time, I'm going to share with you that when you go home tonight, I'm not going to play this song, but when you go home tonight, check out iTunes, check out a song that'll be easy to remember called Higher Ground. That was sung by Barbra Streisand, and it's beautiful. I also want to share with you that if you go to marcycole.com, there's a temporary page until the drmarcycole.com is up. And if you log in and let me know that you'd like a copy of, I call it the Higher Ground 5-minute meditation. I will share it with you. It's what I do when I don't feel centered or I want to stay grounded, and it's how I get myself back there. It's really, really wonderful and effective. So that is it for tonight. I want to offer all of you the patience and flexibility as sisters in seeking higher ground with me. And I wish you great joy in living your way into it and sharing your light and shining your light in a magnificent way. Thank you.